Paul writes in his letter to the church at Ephesus, he says, "Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power." Be strong, mighty power. Kind of suggests that there's something going on that you need some kind of strength and power for, right? He continues, "Put on the full armor of God." So we've got strength and power and an armor so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle, there's a battle. There's something going on in the world that requires strength, power, armor. It's not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. If you feel like life is a battle sometimes, it's not just your imagination. There is something going on in the universe that is set against you. The struggle is real. And Paul says, it's not just your parents or your kids. It's not your next door neighbor or your boss or those troublesome coworkers, sister, spouse. It's not just the evil people in the world. It's not the dictators or the terrorists. There's something going on beyond all of that, behind all of that, that itself against us. There is a battle, and the struggle is real. The journey started partnering with World Vision in 2016. And over the years since 2016, we've contributed a lot to the cause. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that later, about what we've contributed to the cause. But we've also received a lot from this partnership. We've connected to our spiritual community in our neighborhood. We've met people from other churches and made friends and deepened connections and made connections in the schools and with our neighbors through this partnership with World Vision. We've connected to the World Vision community, that there are people that are part of this organization that have trained us, have equipped us, have informed us, have helped us understand the needs of the world and the hurts of the world and the aches and the pains and the difficulties and the challenges that other parts of the world face. And people like Lindsay Dean and Don Lee that we've just learned a lot from in this partnership. We've connected to the world, to people who live in other parts of the world through vision trips and through child sponsorships and through writing letters to our kids and getting letters from our kids. We've connected to the global church community, to people who live in other parts of the world. And that those relationships, both near and far, have given us a different perspective of the world and what's going on in the world. There's a story of two young fish who were greeted one day by an older fish who came up to them and said, "How's the water?" And one young fish turns to the other young fish and said, "What's water?" We swim in culture. It's the water that we live in. And we don't even realize that it is what it is because it's so much a part of our existence, of our life, of our worldview, of our perspective. And when we meet people who live in a different culture and in a different environment, they help us to see the water that we're swimming in. And sometimes the water we're swimming in without even knowing it is toxic. It's not life-giving. It's not life-fulfilling. Helps us see beyond the limits of our worldview. And so we're in the third week of our Stand Firm series. We're looking at this battle that's going on in the world. And one of the things that I think has been really helpful for me, and it's been a part of our Rooted experience, so those of you who are in Rooted groups right now, it's been a part of our World Vision experience, is that in other parts of the world, this spiritual battle is unmasked. It's visible in ways that we don't see it here. In our Western culture, in our scientific worldview, that we've kind of almost written off as, well, that used to happen. There used to be spiritual forces of darkness. There used to be demons, and Jesus cast them out in the Bible, and that's a part of that story. But that stuff doesn't happen anymore. But that stuff does happen. In very real and very tangible ways. And so I'm going to invite a couple people, one in person to share a story this morning and one via video about the spiritual battle that's going on in other parts of the world and how that connects to who we are and where we are and to what we're doing here and to what we're doing in our partnership with World Vision. And so first of all, I'm going to ask Kailey, who is a part of our family here at The Journey. Actually, it's a part of my family too, because she's my daughter. And also a part of World Vision. She's on their staff. She's done a few vision trips now. She's been to Africa on three times. And so she had a trip recently, heard some things that are pretty just profoundly disturbing. But she's going to share a story with you, and then I'm going to have a video from another World Vision person. So, Kailey. Pick one, Ron. Anyone? All right. There you go.
We always have to get Ron's approval first. Yes, so every time that I've had the opportunity to travel to Africa, I've always felt that I'm doing it on behalf of this community because it's been so deeply ingrained and so many of you have been such a big part of this journey. And so it's always an honor to get to come home and share some of what I've seen and learned and heard. And this summer, I visited a community in Ethiopia, and this is truly one of the most difficult trips that I've been on and the most difficult things that I have seen. And so I do want to give just a little bit of warning that what I'm going to share can be very difficult to hear. And so just kind of wanted to give just a little bit of warning for that. We visited a community in Ethiopia, and this community is very separated from any other culture. This community lives sort of on their own and therefore has their own traditions and their own practices that have been around just forever. I mean, and so this community, while Ethiopia has a lot of people who are Muslim, a lot of people who are following Orthodox Christianity, and there's a large portion of the country that is still practicing traditional religion, which means religion that's just been handed down from generation to generation in that specific community. It may not line up with any other religion around the world, just may be specific to that community. And when we got to this community, and I'll explain these pictures in just a second, we learned a little bit about some of those practices and what that looks like. And the World Vision staff sat us down and they shared with us that in this community, there are children who are at birth, who sometimes are labeled as Mingi. And Mingi means cursed. And so there are children when they are born or later in life, it just depends on the situation, for what to us would feel like the most arbitrary, insignificant reasons. For example, if a child is born as a set of twins, they'll be labeled as Mingi. If a child is born with if their front teeth come in before their bottom teeth, they'll be labeled as Mingi. If the family was anticipating that they would have a boy and they had a girl, then that child could be labeled as Mingi. And so when a child once they're labeled as Mingi, then the community itself, the leadership and the community members, that child is thought to bring curse to the village, and so that child will not be allowed to survive. And so in this community, this is a practice that's been around for a very long time, and so very, very difficult. But the man in, let's see here, It's kind of difficult to see. He's in the green skirt and the red headdress. He's one of the traditional community leaders. And growing up, he knew that he would become a traditional leader, and he always just sort of had this feeling that this practice was wrong, which does stand out from the community because this is such an ingrained part of the culture that a lot of people do not realize. They think they're doing their community the best that they can by implementing this practice because they don't want to bring a curse upon their village. And so this man, he felt it was wrong, but there was no grounds for him to stand on to make these changes, to implement that. So he became the leader. And simultaneously, World Vision kind of started to enter the picture and began to build trust within the community and began to, and World Vision, a lot of you have learned over the years that World Vision never goes in and just starts prescribing solutions. They go in, they learn the community, they begin to understand the culture. You can understand that if I walked in and started telling people what to do in a community like this, that people would look at me and say, "Who are you? You don't know anything." And it's true, I don't. And so World Vision builds relationships and builds community, builds trust within the community. And so World Vision began to do some work and began to work with the community leaders. And slowly, and it's still happening in real time, people's relationships are still being built. So when we were there, we got to visit the traditional leader's home. And the first thing that happened when we got out of the car was we met a little girl who is right there in the front of the picture on the right. And right away it was shared with us that she was one of the children that had been saved after she was labeled as a Mingi child. And so now this community leader is taking children in who had been labeled as the cursed children and is raising them as his own children to show the community that these children can be and are a part of their community and can contribute to society and can grow up to be build beautiful children. And so while we were there, we were with this community of people, and this Christian pastor stood up and shared some words, and all of the leaders were singing and they were sharing verses, and I was a little bit confused because we had been told this is not a Christian community. This is a traditional religion community. And so I asked later, I said, I thought this was not a Christian community, but everyone was like singing worship songs, and she said, no, and our World Vision liaison, she said, no, Kailey, it's not a Christian community, but World Vision, we've been working with this pastor, and this pastor has been building relationships with all of the community leaders and has been sharing Jesus with them. Many of them would still not consider themselves Christians at this point, but just the relationships that are being built are strengthening people's understanding and their openness to learn about Jesus. And all of these community leaders have now decided that they no longer agree that the Mingi practice is acceptable, and they've all decided that they want to intervene and take kids into their own homes and show the community, so that the culture is shifting over time. And then there was this moment where our donor liaison stopped us, and she said, but first I want you guys to know that the men that you're talking to have all implemented this practice within their own families. And there's the same people who are then totally changed their mind and their culture shift. I mean, just the level of forgiveness that has to be possible within one's own person, within the culture, for that to be possible, was such a powerful moment. And then to watch these men want to change that moving forward for the generations to come was just very, very powerful. And I think really a testament to the work that's being done and the forgiveness that's being created and the direction that this community is going to be moving forward. I'll share just a little bit more about this community a little bit later, because I know we talk a lot about access to clean water, but I just think no piece is really separated from another piece. Access to water contributes to people and their education, and education contributes to where society will go, and so there's no piece that's disconnected from each other. But this is, I think, an example of that type of spiritual warfare that is being discussed and what we see on a different level in other parts of the world.
Thank you, Kailey. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus says, I've come that you may have life and have it to the full. David Wagner, another World Vision staff person.
It really is a gift. Anytime, someone like invites you to share a story of transformation, I see the kingdom of God. I was a pastor for 20 years, so I'm going to talk about the kingdom of God a lot. But it really is a gift for you to be able to hold this space with me. And I hope that what I share would be both encouraging and exhortative as you as a team are endeavoring to do what only God can do and God can fulfill. So I'm going to screen share. And hopefully, can you guys all see my Kenya Vision Trip Area Program? Yeah, as Kelly had said, I have had the privilege of leading a trip of mostly pastors, a couple Team World Vision folks, to a new area that we're working in called Kanongo Area Program, kind of the southernmost part of Kenya. It's a place that has really felt the effects of what has been the worst famine in Africa in the last 60 years. It not only has struggled with food security, both in disaster relief, but just in growing their own food security. I'm going to share that in a minute. But then also access to water. And, one of the things that I had heard, and forgive me if this stat is off, but that the average American has about 3 cups of water a day. The average Kenyan, like in Nairobi, is the capital, has about 8 cups a day. But in Kanongo, the children there drink just 1 cup of water a day. And so water conservation is everything, and access to clean water is everything. So if I had to frame this trip, the word would be contested. I saw a community that had battled with and contested with the effects of the global water crisis on a very, very real level. To be really frank with you, like, I've been to Africa about 6 times. I've never seen poverty on this scale, like really, really destructive. And our trip was, and the theme of my trip coming out of it was spiritually contested. And I don't know if you felt that in what we get to do. I think sometimes, like, we can feel insecure or minimize what we're doing in solving the global water crisis. And I feel like running marathons for clean water is just a contested space. So very briefly, before we even got into the country, flights were canceled. We had to divert people. 3 of our 14 passengers' visas were denied at the airport. So they were left in the airport when the rest of us left. Flights were delayed. Half of our luggage didn't arrive. We got it just before we flew out to Mombasa. And so we're feeling this resistance between our team and this community coming together. To the point where it's like, if we can just get together, there's going to be power and transformation there. So it just felt like this spiritually contested trip that we were on. And then we got on to, a nice little 5-hour, they call it, whenever you're in country and you're driving on the roads, they call it an African massage, because essentially you're just being tossed in and through these, Land Cruisers or whatever. But this is what we saw. This was 4 hours of this, of just corn stalks or maize that it grew about a third of maturity and then died. And I just think about the hope and the promise of what a harvest means to a community, and that just deferred, and it was devastating. And so I'm working with the team, trying to build the team to a point of, like, we need to be hope, we need to be good news, we're bringing clean water, this is not the end of your story, all that kind of stuff that you do to just motivate and align people to mission. And because I know that we're going to go to a community where children have died, where people are suffering, where all these things are happening, and I'm building this all in my mind. And I know that it's true because I felt this, like, spiritual warfare on a large scale. And instead we come to a community with kids that are covered. I mean, the tree is such a picture of covering. We're all under it, and they're celebrating, and they're singing, and they're thankful because of World Vision's partnership. So this is a school the World Vision's only partnered with for 18 months, and I'm bad on tech, so I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to pause at certain things. Okay, so anyways, celebrations is the first key theme. And then, all right. And then what you'll see is right here, there's a building here. World Vision provided that just 9 months ago. School enrollment increased to 1,000 kids. We have a water reservoir tank, was just amazing right there. World Vision provided these desks that you may or may not see, 250 of them, which is amazing. So clean water is the silver key that unlocks transformation through a broader community. We also get to see over here, like, When we think about wash, access to water is really key in this community, but like sanitation and hygiene is a game changer, because before this was installed 6 months ago, they were going behind that tree, and men or boys and girls, and there was no housing at that time for the staff and the faculty. It was just devastating. And a lot of that came from this amazing project, which, so when you're in Africa, you're not thinking about being a videographer. So I really apologize. It's like horrible. But anyways, it's really fast. Okay. So I pause it right there. I don't know if you can see this right here. All of this housing right here is for the staff, like most of the teachers. They also have a medical facility. And if you can really see, like back up in here by this tree, there's a little thing of water that's right there. Well, what World Vision did when they first partnered with this community was they invested in an $8 million water reservoir. And this reservoir, in part, was sponsored through USAID and our partnership with Procter & Gamble, like a big team of partners coming together to solve the global water crisis. And 5,000 people last year piped clean water, 8,000 this next year, just total game changer. So after we came out of this community, I asked Kefe, who's the director of faith and leadership development for the entire country of Kenya. He happened to be on our trip. I said, I think one of the struggles for me is, like, we know what providing clean water looks like. What does the faith element look like? How does prayer affect clean water? And he shared with me this story that just has wrecked me. He said, there's a science to water and there's a spirituality to water. And when we go to do this work, it's a battle. Like, there's no question about it. And so he said, what happened with this is we're coming to bring the fullness of life in 2 years to over 10,000 people. And there was a local witch doctor who had said, I will allow this to occur if you sacrifice to my spirits, and then, give me some financial kickback. And World Vision had said, that's not fullness of life, and we refuse. We don't play that way. And ultimately, what happened was the witch doctor cursed the land. And I don't know where you land theologically on this, but what it meant for our team was they went to start the reservoir, and it was like complication after complication. Where there should be water, there was none, once, twice. And very quickly, we discovered that this is a contention in the heavenlies. And so Kefe organized the whole community, organized all of World Vision to pray against this power that was at work against the fullness of life, to crush the bonds of the enemy. And so they prayed and prayed. And ultimately, together, they were able to accomplish something that hadn't been seen in that area. And that was like crushing the power of like the local witch doctor. So I love this picture, and I'll wrap it up really quick here. But this is a picture of Bishop Osco Gardine Jr., who just started partnering with us. And he had visited Africa for the first time, really powerful moment. And he was praying over these children that they would be under the covering of the kingdom of God, and also that they would know that we who have started a good work will run it into completion. And so I just got this verse for you that I wanted to kind of give before you at this front end of the season. And it's Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. It says, this is the final word. Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power, and put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all strategies of the devil. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against the mighty powers in this dark world, against evil spirits in the heavenly places. And I was reminded of this. Jesus said in John 10:10, the thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. And being in the West, I think a lot of the purposes of the enemy is to steal my vision, to kill my joy, and destroy my mission, and to live outside of my own world or outside of my own team. And then Jesus says, but my purpose is to give them a rich and a satisfying life. Because, and I think the bottom line is this, right? Like, sorry. This is Elder Charlene Bray, okay, Burlingame, Alabama, Guiding Light Church. She's awesome. She was dancing with the children. And I think that whereas the miles and logging those moments are really hard throughout the year, what we're contesting for is joy. What we're contesting for is the fullness of life, because on the other end of those miles, and we say it all the time, it is so very true, but your grit and your tenacity results in this. And so I just want to share that with you. I think that's my slide. I'll stop screen sharing. Thank you so much for letting me share with you all.
See, life is the mission. Life is the mission. Whether it's bringing clean water to people on the other side of the world, because water is life, or it's joy, freedom in our own lives, in our own world. Jesus said, anyone who seeks to save their life, they will lose it. Anyone loses their life for my sake, they will find it. The devil doesn't have to make your head spin to win. He only has to get us focused on ourselves and our own lives and our own problems. Because if we seek to save our own life, we lose life. But when we seek the purposes of the kingdom, Jesus said it's there. It's in giving ourselves away that we find the life that we were made for and the life that we long for. The church, Jesus says, holds the keys to the kingdom. On this rock, Jesus said to Peter, I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. What you do here matters for eternity. What you do here matters in heaven. What we're doing matters to the glory of God all over the world, but it matters right here too, in our own lives, in our own church. We participate with World Vision because we're bringing something to the world, but we're also getting something from our partnership. God is changing lives, has changed dramatically lives in our own community and beyond. So Kailey's going to come up and talk to you a few more minutes about where we're at and what we're doing.
Thanks. Well, now I get to transition from some really difficult stuff to share to some really fun celebration. So, Ron, I think we have a slide here. This church community has been on this journey for a long time, and almost every person in this room has been a part of that in some capacity. I would argue probably every person in this room has been a part of that in some capacity. And over the years, since 2016, if you direct your attention to the screen, this church community has raised $336,000 to go towards clean water. I mean, that's like competing with the size of our church budget year over year. So that's amazing. I mean, that's incredible, and I believe that doesn't take away. It adds to what we can do as a church. And $336,000, that looks like over 6,700 kids who now have access to clean water because people in this community have continued to say yes, continued to put one foot in front of the other, just year after year after year. And we'll never know what those dollars, what those kids, what those people with clean water, what that looks like on this side of heaven. We'll never know, but we can know that the impact is absolutely incredible. When I was in Ethiopia this past summer, we did get to go to one solar-powered water project. I think we have the picture of that. That's up next as well. This solar-powered water project is currently serving 4,500 people. So, just imagine what 4,500 people is. That's like probably 2 local high schools worth of kids who now have access to clean water because of this water project. This solar pump goes to 6 locations within the community. One is the healthcare clinic, one is the school. And yes, that means before this, the healthcare clinic and the school did not have access to clean water, but now they do. And so the healthcare clinic and the school, other 4 points just throughout the community, and then 46 individual households. That means within 46 homes, people walk directly to a tap in their home and pour water into a cup that's safe for them to drink. I mean, that's just incredible. And I think that this is a great representation of the number of people, like an entire community, who have access to clean water, plus some, because of this church family. I mean, that's amazing. And then the second part of that is that you might be saying, well, look at everything we've done. Isn't that enough? But the reality is that there are still millions, 770 million people around the world who drink water that looks like what you see on the screen here. The very next day after we visited the solar-powered project, we went to this. I watched these two little boys with my own eyes fill up those water bottles and take them home as they're drinking water for their family. And so that's why we say yes. That's why we stand up here with these crazy invitations year after year, that maybe you look at us and you see the orange jerseys and you think, okay, I don't know about that this year. But I'd invite you, in a second we're going to play a video, and then after the video I think Ron's going to share. But I'd invite you, as this video plays, that if there's even just a little bit tugging on your heart this year, saying maybe this is the year you say yes, maybe this is the year you say yes again, that there might be two voices in your head. There might be a really quiet one kind of nudging you, saying maybe this is the year. But unfortunately, the one that's louder is usually giving you all the reasons that you shouldn't listen to the quiet voice. So I invite you to listen to that quiet voice just a little bit extra as this video plays. And thank you. And so we hope that you can consider this, and we'll get to see you after the service. Thank you.
I always thought running was dumb.
So I never wanted to run, hated running.
I am not an athlete.
I'm not a runner.
I never thought I would run a marathon.
Why are we doing this? This is hard. It's because we're saving lives.
I was sitting in a spiritual recliner. You know, the lever on the side of that recliner, God just pulled it and ejected me out and said, hey, get to work. I need to move.
Water crisis is something that we think of very little because nobody here in the U.S. has to walk 6 miles back and forth daily to get water. Because of World Vision's work, children are free to go to school. Women are able to go to work and build up their local communities.
You know, I wouldn't describe myself as a super athlete. Can I go run 26 miles? I couldn't when training started, but today I can.
I've had 5 knee surgeries. This is a total gift that God's given back to me. I need to do something with it.
There are people who tell me all the time now that they are grateful that they can donate because they feel like they're running along with me.
The Team World Vision family, it is a family. It doesn't matter how fast or how slow we run. These are all people who are changing the world with their feet.
I'm not running for myself. I'm running for someone else's finish line. And that's what keeps me moving.
Good morning, everyone. For those that don't know who I am, I'm Ron Thomas. I am the team captain for Team Journey this year. And I just want to say that every one of you is on Team Journey, in my opinion. Because whether you're going to be running, walking, jogging, crawling, pushing, whatever the case may be, if you're a spectathlete where you stand on the side of the road and cheer us on as we run, you're a member of Team Journey. If you're helping by donating to any one of the people that are running, walking, jogging, you're on Team Journey. And I just want to say thank you. And I hope that you, like Kailey said, she actually stole one of the things I was going to say, was if you're hearing that voice in your head, like really loudly like now, that says, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, take a little time, calm yourself, and listen for that small little voice and see what that little voice says. And I just really encourage you to consider running, walking, jogging with us. You don't have to do a full marathon, 26.2 miles. You can do the half, 13.1. I am doing the full. I'm kind of regretting it, but I am doing the full. So I just really want to encourage you to take that leap of faith and step out and make a commitment. Thanks.
Thanks. Ron is our fearless team captain, and very grateful for his leadership. At the conclusion of the service, there's going to be a meeting up front, right up here, and Kailey's going to talk you through the process of becoming part of the team, answer any questions that you might have, if you need help making a decision. And so even if you have the two voices, if you're hearing two voices, come to that gathering, okay? If there are two voices, come to the gathering. Who's ever louder or quieter, I don't care. Just come to the gathering if there are two voices. And encourage you to consider what God is doing among us and in us and through us, and how he wants you to be a part of that. Thank you so much for your presence with us, for worshiping together with us, for serving alongside of us, both of our community here, our online viewers. There is Team World Vision in many other cities around the world. You too could be a part of this, running in Indianapolis. We have some folks there that have run. We have races in Seattle and Colorado and New York and Chicago. So there are lots of places in other parts of the world that you can be a part of this too. You can support our Team Journey members. And this is something that God has done, moved mightily through our church and in our church family. So with that, we're going to conclude our service. Go with God's grace, walk and live in love and the power of his Spirit. Go in peace, but not to pieces. Amen.